We are the Guinea Pig Collective. All will be assimilated. Resistance is futile.
Searching for old treasures, blowing off the dust. Timeless stories and legendary characters. This is Talking Movies. Hey everybody, what's going on? And welcome back to another Talking Movies. So for today's film in review, we will be talking about the 1984 Larry Gross and Walter Hill, written and directed by Walter Hill, Streets of Fire, starring Michael Paré as Tom Cody, Diane Lane as Ellen Aim, Rick Moranis as Billy Fish, Amy Madigan as McCoy, Willem Dafoe as Raven Shaddock, Deborah Van Valkenburg as Reva Cody, Richard Lawson as Officer Ed Price, Rick Rozovich as Officer Cooley, Bill Paxton as Clyde the bartender, Lee Ving as Greer, Stoney Jackson as Bird from the Sorrells, Grandel Bush, Reggie from the Sorrells, Robert Townsend as Lester from the Sorrells, My Kelty Williamson, BJ the Sorrells, Elizabeth Daly as Baby Doll. And the story goes as such. When the lead singer of Ellen Aim and the Attackers is kidnapped by biker gang The Bombers, her ex-soldier of fortune boyfriend is contacted and hired to get her back. But actually rescuing her from the Bombers is only the beginning. This movie was very heavy on action, and it had a few comedy sequences built into it, which were not over the top and did not really detract from the seriousness of most of this film. There was, of course, some lightheartedness in it and a lot of musical undertones to it. It is, however, supposed to be and listed as a rock and roll fable. Would not actually be so without some rock and roll in it. And like most movies of the time, there is just enough backstory and downtime so you can get to know the characters without having long sequences of nothing but action. Not to say that this didn't have plenty of action in it, it did, but it took time to explain the characters that were involved. Now, the backdrops to this movie are very, almost like a cross between the 1950s and a present day or maybe even a future looking vibe to it, very reminiscent to what they had in The Warriors. And because of the gang, The Bombers, in this movie, it kind of draws some similar parallels to it and very much could be considered in the same type of genre. So if you like The Warriors, The Outsiders, other movies like that, you will like this movie. It is a very good movie. And the music in it is actually very catchy for the most part, even though some of it actually borderlines on pop and R&B and rock and roll. All of it was very well done, in my opinion. But as well done as this movie seems on the surface, this was intended to be the first in a trilogy of action films starring Michael Paré as Tom Cody. However, its failure at the box office had put an end to the project. Now, that's not to take anything away from this film, because there have been plenty of films that have failed at the box office only to become cult classics later on and highly talked about. So the Attackers were the real-life bandmates of Laurie Sargent, who provided the singing voice for Ellen Aim. Their band was called Face to Face, and they played mainly new wave music around the Boston area. The group split up in 1988. So, not everything always goes according to plan. On the set, Michael Paré had problems with Rick Moranis. So, Rick Moranis drove me out of my mind. There's this whole wave of insult comedy. In the real world, if someone insults you a couple of times, you can smack them or punch them. You can't do that on a movie set. And these comedians walk around and they could say whatever they want. I'm just not that handy with that. Comedians are a special breed. They can antagonize you and say whatever they want, and you can't do anything to stop them. He's this weird-looking little guy who can't get laid in a whorehouse with a fistful of 50s. He would imitate me. The first thing he says to me is, "Do you just act cool, or are you really cool?" That was the first sentence out of his mouth to me in Joel Silver's office. And I was like, oh, this is not going to go well. But he was one of Joel's dear friends, and he ended up making a bunch of movies for Disney. I just wasn't that sharp. I wasn't ready for that kind of crap. Obviously, Michael Pare did not care for Rick Moranis at all. So when Amy Madigan read for the film, she read for the part of the lead character's sister. Madigan told Walter Hill that the best part in the script was the lead character's sidekick. That part called for a man, and the character's name was Mendez. The part was rewritten for Madigan and was renamed McCoy. Who says diversity never happened back then? The Torchy's bar dancer was Jennifer Beals, dance double in Flashdance from 1983. And more than 50 motorcycles and their riders were featured as the Bombers and were chosen from 200 members of real LA-based clubs like the Crusaders and the Heathens. And the club named Torchies is also seen in 48 Hours, 1982, and When a Stranger Calls in 1979, and also The Driver from 1978. And for some of you video game enthusiasts out there, this film was the inspiration for Final Fight 1989 and Streets of Rage 1991. As a side note, a lot of characters that were seen in The Warriors also appear in Streets of Fire, including the female DJ who is a train conductor in Streets of Fire. So what are some of the goofs that happened in this one? Though during the climactic fist fight, the bloody cut on Raven's right temple disappears and reappears. In the stairway scene, Tom Cody's hair makes drastic changes all on its own. So the window in the diner is totally crushed after Tom throws several thugs through it. In the next scene, the window appears to be fixed with tape. That would have been impossible. And when the team leaves for the Battery shortly after 11 a.m. and arrives at night, similarly, they leave shortly afterwards and don't return to the Richmond district until morning. No city in the world is so big that it would take 8 hours or more to cross, even considering they were hiding from the cops. At the end of the rescue scene, when Tom Cody knocks one of the Bombers off his motorcycle, the wire used to pull the rider off actually can be seen. And when Billy Fish gets in Cody's car for the first time, lighting equipment can be seen in the car door's reflection. Anyway, guys, that's all I have on this one. I appreciate you being here, and I hope that you've enjoyed yourself. And if so, do not forget to let me know what you think in those comments down below. And of course, as always, if you've enjoyed yourself, go ahead, destroy that like button for me. And if you are new to the channel, welcome. I hope you've enjoyed yourself and you will consider subscribing. And I will catch you all next time. Later, y'all.